Instead of distracting from the core business, Marles said that promoting inclusiveness would strengthen Australian defence capabilities by helping to attract diverse collections of talents and ensure the military reflects modern Australia.
Hey team, how we going? It is Kaz from In the Trenches with Kaz, and someone a little bit more grizzled than myself, and that is Mr. Buckeroonie, for those that don't know. Mr. Buckeroonie, I'm going to let you do the rough introduction. Let's get to it. We're here with an axe to grind today. So fantastic to have you here. Support for your channel, and thank you for how you support ours.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, Kaz, and good to catch up with you again, mate. And hey, for all those who probably see my name in the comment section, guys, I'm Mr. Buckeroonie. Buck's my nickname. Everyone gets a nickname in the army, Kaz, don't they? And that one stuck with me since I was 17, mate, when I first joined the army. So quick introduction, guys. I joined the army when I was 17, back in 1982, when some of you guys probably weren't even born.
I am your father.
I went from 1982 to 2002. So I did just over 20 and a half years in the Australian Regular Army. I was in Signals Corps for most of that. 19 years. That's where they send all the smart ones, Kaz. Signals Corps.
Oh, really? I've got a phone that works even better.
That's right. What these things can do, mate, if we had this technology back in the 80s in Signals Corps, that was pie in the sky stuff, mate. It's pretty scary. That could make another really good chat one night, mate. The technology of these things compared to what we had when we were in the army. But yeah, I did 20 years, mate. I've made it up to Warrant Officer Class 2. I got out when I was in my late 30s, 38 or whatever, and then I joined the Queensland Police, mate. I was in there for 6 years, and then the paperwork got to me there, guys. For anyone who wants to have a chat what being a cop's like, I can tell you all about that as well. And I'll tell you what, it's not all how they make it out to be. There's a lot of paperwork behind the scenes. And then I changed over to Queensland Corrections, Kaz, and worked in the prisons for 13 years. And I've recently retired, mate. I've down tools, and I'm enjoying myself now, and got a YouTube channel myself called Mr. Buckeroonie. Totally different to what yours is, mate. Mine's all about camping, fishing, four-wheel driving,
Camping,
cooking with camp ovens, getting out and enjoying life, mate. But I'm still passionate about the military and what's happening now, mate. And that's why we're on this morning, because there's some disturbing stuff going on.
and the mission is basically across both of our channels is mentoring others. It is about finding that inner peace, living in the moment, and having a more fulfilling life. And sometimes the conversation we're about to have now is all about not protecting with the weapon, but protecting with the mind and the platforms that we've created to allow the people to know that we don't speak from politics here. What we do is speak the real truth about the things that are watering down the protections that we take for granted.
Absolutely, Kaz. Well said, mate. Yes.
Thank you. With McDonald's coffee, I get through.
Now, there's something wrong with this picture here, guys. We've got an ex-infantry guy there sipping on a bloody half-strength soy latte from McDonald's, and we've got a guy that did 20 years in Signals Corps having an instant. Hey, how about that one, mate?
At least I don't have someone from LGBT on my hat badge.
The old Interflora guy, old Jimmy, we used to call him. For those who don't know, the Signals badge is Mercury the Messenger, and everyone reckons he looks like the bloke out of the Interflora, on his thing, but it's actually Mercury the Messenger, mate.
I'll stick it up on the screen.
Yeah, that's it. Mercury the Messenger, and his nickname was Jimmy. We all called the little fella on our Signals hat badge Jimmy, and the actual OR's boozer at 1st Signal Regiment in Enoggera is called the Jimmy's Club.
And for those that don't know, as a confession, I actually started my military career that went for 24 years in infantry. I started in Army Reserve before that in Signal Corps at 136.
Well, there you go. I remember we're 141 over at Jazeen. Is it Jazeen Barracks or?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, there you go, mate. 141. So yeah, Signals Corps, Kaz. And I know I read a lot of the comments on your channel, mate, and I see that there's a lot of young kids out there now that mention that I'm going for communications operator and that. Totally different jobs now to what was in there when I went through, mate. I can't comment on Signals Corps now. It's all obsolete, satellite was coming in, just as I was getting out, we were getting satellite detachments and all that type of stuff. It was all going to IT. Everyone was a computer and all that. The old days, HF communications out of a gum tree are gone, mate.
The new Starlink situation with World Wide Web is going to be insane. You know, what it does for the community, the signals community, which is now interlaced with the intelligence community, which also means to those that go to that, there's going to be an off-ramp into federal organizations with top clearances that allow you to have opportunities for law enforcement, intelligence community, and military roles, or those that feed into those roles that you cannot get unless you have done time in the military or the law enforcement agencies. So when someone says there's no qualifications, nothing, wait for you after the army, that is fake news, mate. Yeah. Let's get to it. Let's get to it. You've got to be in your bonnet, you know, and I no doubt I'm about to be stung by the same bee. Let's go.
Righto. The Defence Minister has recently made an announcement. And now I know you're always, and this is a big topic on your channel, Kaz, is lowering the standards of the Australian soldier. Well, as we know, we've just had a recent government changeover to the Labor government, who have never been pro-Australian Defence Force, mate. They've never really hammered home. I know when I was in the army, when Labor was in charge, mate, we struggled. We went nowhere. We did nothing. Our equipment wasn't good. The new Defence Minister, Richard Marles, from the Labor Party, has now said, basically, in a nutshell, in layman's terms, he's given direction to the ADF to drop the standards, drop the requirements, because he wants more female and LGBTQI XYZ community in the Defence Force, mate. But what concerns me, and I've got no problem with that, Kaz, gay people and all that being in the army or the Defence Force, I haven't got a problem. What I've got a problem with, Kaz, is they're lowering the standards to let people in, mate, because of the colour of your skin or what side you bat for. It's not on, mate. It's not on. It's going to come back and bite us on the arse.
And that might be what you want if you're from the LGBT community, but that's not what our role is about. People need to understand before we read out the email that you've sent me that I haven't looked at yet, that because I want a fresh emotion, is the military has a separate legal system. And that says to you from the start, one, we are not political. I don't care if you don't know who the commander of your unit is, because your boss is the Queen. Okay. And there is no fraternization between ranks. So if there's no politics and there's no fraternization, what that tells you is when you come in the military, I don't need to know what your sexual preference is. You don't deserve a gender pronoun because you've got a rank. And when in doubt, call someone mate. So there is no reason. And I'll say one more thing, Bucko. And I've said this before. If you are more proud of your Aboriginal status or your LGBT status or whatever your previous flag of allegiance comes to, and it overpowers your love to serve for the generic flag, which is the Australian flag, then you are not welcome in the Australian Army. You might be welcomed by HR. You might be welcomed by a commander that wants to be a politician, but you will not be welcomed by those that share and protect your back as you sleep. They will put up with you. They're not going to necessarily give you a hard time because the LGBT has also snuck in and made a Gestapo that looks after their own. I have no problem with gay people. No. John Jordan, legend. And he was a pioneer, so to speak, for the LGBT community, not the LGBT community, but for gay people. And he stood up and said that he was gay. In a battalion of nearly 1,000 men, nothing happened to him, nothing. But what he did, he taught us a lot about respect, personal values, and moral courage. So that's a tick for him. But there's a massive difference between being gay and being LGBT community. For starters, nothing to be proud of. It's your sexuality. I'm not proud of loving girls with big bums, big boobs, brown eyes, and a low self-esteem, which means they'll put up with me. So in saying that, when you come and join the army, I want you to bring a sense of humour. I want you to bring true grit. I want you to bring standards. I want you to bring patriotism and a love for the fellow man that you've never met, that you're here and strive to protect the children of Australia and those abroad that call in the night for help when we can, okay, so we can do our job, but then don't tell us how to do our job. The people of the police force are protecting our children domestically. So let's get that straight off the bat. There is no prejudices here. What we're fearing for is that you are now getting a fugazi, a life preserver for an ever heavier person that won't be able to support your weight should the ship go down, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just the military too, Cal. I serve with gay people in the Queensland Police and Queensland Corrections, and I didn't care what their sexual preference was, as long as they didn't pinch me on the bum butt.
Did they join for the handcuffs?
They might have, only the fluffy ones. All I cared about, Kaz, is if I went out as a copper and shit hit the fan and I was on the ground having a wrestle with some bloody 6'3" guy, that person was going to be, there you go, that person was going to be in there with me, bloody helping get the handcuffs on that person. Yep. Or if I went into a unit of 50 murderers and bloody bank robbers and all that type of stuff, your 2 screws going into a unit of 50 crims, I wanted to know if things started going south, then that person on my left shoulder was there with me and taking the hits with me, or helping, both of us helping each other get out of that unit, mate. That's all I cared about, is that you can rely on that person when things go south. Same as in the army, mate.
Yep. With me, with you. That's what we say before we go through a room with our weapon up high. You know,
exactly right.
The thing is too, for starters, I'd like to do a call out quickly to the police force, correction officers, first responders and soldiers, Air Force and Navy, that we appreciate everything you do. We may not know your names, but you're welcome here. You know, same deal. And I know you share those sentiments with me, Buck, the silent guys and gals that represent us. But also a quick call out to one of our mutual friends, Ali Duggan from Innisfail. Was it Cardwell or Innisfail?
No, Ali's in Innisfail. She's a sergeant now.
Sergeant. No, what?
Sergeant Ali Duggan.
When you go to sergeant, when you become a sergeant, that means your partner gets overweight real quick.
Hey, can I tell you just a real quick story, Kaz? Ali, and I was Ali's FTO, field training officer. When Ali first came out of the police academy, she got sent to Innisfail, a little country town up near Cairns, guys, in far north Queensland. Second day, I was in charge of Ali for her first 8 weeks on the road. So she's come out of the academy, and I said, right, Ali, you've learned all this stuff at the academy. Now I'm going to show you how to put it in practice out on the street, dealing with real people. No scenario-based stuff. This is fair income now. You've got a Glock on your hip with live 40 cal, one up the spout, ready to go. We go to domestics. The domestics are real. They're not staged in that. We go to a pub blue. They're going to be real bar stools that are hitting you in the head. I said, don't let your guard down. We might be in a country town. Things can still happen here. Well, guess what? We went to a domestic on Ali's second day at the job. It was 10:30 in the morning. You got a domestic over in East Innisfail. We went around there. We pulled the car up. We heard the screaming coming from the house. As we ran into the carport, old mate's there with 2 massive butcher knives ready for us. We found out later he was going to wait for us to run into the kitchen, and he was going to get us from behind with the butcher's knives. Luckily, he didn't know where we were, and he's just putting his head around the corner to see if we were coming when I ran into the carport. Soon as I saw the blades, me and Ali had our guns out on him, pointed straight at him. And basically that's where the training kicked in, Kaz, the training that you learn at the academy.
Yep.
All the direction, the commands that you give this guy. Drop the knives, you give him the warnings and all that type of stuff. Luckily for him and us, we got through to him. He came down the flight of stairs. He threw the knives to one side. He got on his guts, and we got the handcuffs on him and that. That was Ali's second day on the job, mate. And you know what? Young girl, she's only about 5 foot something. She was wet behind the ears, just out of the academy. But, you know, it was a good thing. She was an ex-military police officer too. She was in the army before. So as soon as she said, I'm ex-army, I thought, right, I know I can rely on this girl. And guess what? Second day on the job as a copper, I could rely on her, mate. I could see her out of the corner of my eye with her Glock out, pointed straight at this guy. She kept her mouth shut. She let me give the directions and the commands to this guy. And at the end of the day, we didn't have to shoot this guy. And we got him in handcuffs. We got him into the watch house. And that girl, his partner, wasn't harmed. So there's a quick story for you, mate.
Do you know the moral of the story is? Always trust someone that was trained by Kaz.
That's it, mate. Yeah, and you know, Ali, she's a good kid, mate, and she's not a kid anymore. But she's a sergeant now in the police. Now we're going way back, mate. We're going way back, and Ali's done very well for herself, mate. And as I said, as soon as she told me I'm ex-military, when we got in the car for the first day, she said, "Oh, I'm ex-army." I thought, "You bloody beauty, I can rely on you." I knew I could rely on her, mate.
Bucko, let's get on to the email that you've sent me, because this is the very first time you've ever sent me with fire and brimstone. You know, something to say, something that chapped your ass more than chaps. So
that's it.
I'm going to put these glasses of intelligence on. My IQ just improved. And let's read what you've sent. I'm going to read this out, mate. And if I get to a stage where it looks like a tactical pause is required for clarification, we'll do that. Okay.
Yep.
Because everyone said that when the Labor government comes in, we're not going to see a difference. We've already seen a difference. They're talking about inflation at the moment being 6.something%. How can it be 6% when everything you buy is about 30% to 100% more expensive? Yeah. Mathematics is not hard to see. Nothing has only gone up 6%. Okay, so Bucko sends me this. Australia, 30th of August, 2022. The Albanese government is resuming discriminatory recruitment and promotion practices in the Australian Defence Force after 2 years of less ideology-focused military activity. So that goes to show you it's not just about politics. This is about winning support from those, the coalition of the loudest, you know, for future
minority groups. In other words,
minority groups. Okay, the village idiot a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Albanese government minister of defence, has he ever served? I'd ask that question. Richard Marles.
I very much doubt it, Kaz. Yep. He wouldn't know a bloody Abrams tank from a Steyr.
Richard Marles has stated that he has directed the ADF to cease ability and qualification-based recruitment of new personnel and focus on the recruitment of women, LGBTI individuals by directly applying racial and pending bias against males of European descent. You know what? And I'd be angry if I was the LGBT community too, because what that's if I was gay, not LGBT, they'll take anything they can get. But if I was a gay member, one, it's no one's business but your own. There's nothing to be proud of. You haven't achieved something. It's just what you are. But the other one is you're getting special
preferential treatment.
You're getting preferential treatment that is unwarranted and not to do with meritocracy. You know, I would say not only are we dropping the standards in the military, we're dropping the standards in Australia, not of being a male or being a female, but by being an adult. We're dropping the standard of actually being an adult in Australia, you know, of having the common sense, of being a free thinker, you know, of being able to solve problems. You should have shame for a whole list of things that helps you self-regulate as a citizen that contributes to the table. So it's not just the military, it's not just the police, it's not just nursing, it's just not doctors, it's just not building, it's not just teachers. We're dropping the standards everywhere. And if you follow the money and ask the question why, you will be cancelled. That should be scary to everyone of every sector. Yeah. We're seeing now the HR department is normally the enemy of the actual corporation they're working for.
Yeah, it just makes your blood boil, doesn't it? You know, you and me went through the army, Kaz, where if you didn't come up the standard, they made you come up the standard or you were gone from the army. When I went through the Queensland Police Academy, if you didn't pass the physical tests and the obstacle course, which was a little lung buster and that, you didn't go out on the street. You did not graduate. I'd hate to think how they're watering that down now, mate. There's got to be a standard. There's got to be a line in the sand, Kaz. And if you're not good enough, you don't bloody go in. And that goes for all the young kids that follow you that want to be in the army. If they can't get to that basic fitness thing to get through Kapooka, don't even apply to go to Kapooka because you're not good enough. You shouldn't be coming through the other end, mate.
Kapooka actually has now a standard. There is no fitness test to get out of Kapooka, which means that it's designed to allow everyone 20% fail. It's to allow people to get through the component where you're allowed to quit before they get the hard news, when they get their initial employment training that sets them up for a fail, you know, that you haven't met that standard that we had to meet or get back squatted, which was the benchmark. So you could assume that every single person is now fit enough to deploy in a field environment safely and without any danger to themselves, overheating, etc. Do you know what else they don't test anymore, I believe? Tell me if I'm wrong. Those that are watching, they've got rid of the swim test as a gate. So you don't have to be able to swim to get out of Kapooka now. Pretty dangerous if you go to North Queensland and work with maritime. If you go to Darwin, and you work with the Marine Expeditionary Forces up there. Righto. So the Defence Minister, Marles, already don't like this guy. Also overturned proliferation of non-official work halts to celebrate extremist ideology causes, restoring the rights of favoured identity groups to distribute the scheduled training as one of his first ministerial decisions. I don't need to hear anything more. This bloke had better keep out of my periphery, so to speak. I'm not going to read any more because it's infuriating me and I still want to have a nice day. What I would say is the taxpayer funds every single thing we do. The taxpayer, they trust that we do real training, real HR that attracts the right people, the A-team, as Ed Sheeran would say it, or B.A. Baracus. He's paper champ. You know, we need the right people and we need them to be volunteers. Because I'll say one thing, Bucko, if your son or daughter joins the Australian Army, police force, etc., the last thing they want is to know that their kid is in danger because someone that won't pick up a rifle, someone that won't deploy, someone that probably doesn't turn up for the dawn service of Anzac Day or take a minute's silence in Remembrance Day, if they don't take that seriously, but what they do take is the patriotism of the LGBT flag seriously, then they should be sacked instantly. Mr. Dutton, get that person in a squirrel grip and get them the F out of there while they're eating their fucking chocolate scone at 10 o'clock in the morning paid for by the taxpayer. If they've got a problem, come and see me and we can have a debate over that, because someone that served 24 years in the Australian infantry in countries across the world, I've got a lot to say about the leadership that is damning the soldier without looking in the mirror themselves.
I tell you what, just what you said there, mate. If my son, he did time in the army as well, Kaz, Phil, he did about 6 years in the army. If my son deployed overseas and was killed because of incompetent soldiers either side of him, because they weren't trained up to the required standard, I would, as a parent, be absolutely pissed off, mate.
Yep.
If he got killed overseas in the line of combat and everyone around him was at the same standard, you'd go, okay, he served his country or whatever. But if it was because of total incompetence of the leaders of the ADF, you would be after blood, mate. I would be absolutely pissed off. And it's happening, Kaz. It's happening now, mate. I saw it. I got out in 2002. I started seeing it creeping in back then, mate. They were starting to lower some standards back then because females were coming into field force units in Signals Corps. When I first joined, males couldn't even go to a field force unit in Signals. Females couldn't go to a field force unit. Then they brought that in. Now they're in infantry and that. Spoke to a lot of young infantry lads that are now correctional officers, and they said, Buck, you should see it now, mate. The standards have dropped. They're dropping the standards so that the females can pass, so that they can go to infantry, because someone at the top thought it'd be a good idea, mate. I don't think any of the girls down there wanted to be in infantry. They were lied to. And you've said that many a time, mate.
The females get lied to about the standard and what is the required and what is the weight. An example of that is everyone needs to be able to carry the Mag 58 in an infantry tactical situation in a dismounted role. The Mag 58 weighs 10.9 kilos. The barrel weighs another 3 kilos for the second barrel, and the rounds weigh about 24 kilos for the 800 rounds I have to carry. That's a total, do your maths, of around 34 kilograms before you're wearing your protective ensemble, before you're wearing your pack, before you are in temperatures exceeding 40 degrees and looking for 6 months or in or about for someone who's jointly trying to take you out. That is just one weapon system everyone has to be qualified to carry. We need the right people for the right job. They're volunteers. They deserve the truth from the start, and they also deserve the best leadership and the most discrimination on how to get the best job. Now, if you are gay, join the army. If you're not, join the army. If you are Indigenous, if you are female, if you are male, join the army. It is the best way to start any career, to do your time in the uniform and learn what it is like to have the resilience, the stoicism, to serve the country with pride and love. Now, a call to action to you, because we're about to run out of time on the Zoom call here, is what are your thoughts on this? You know, you are the taxpayer. This is coming out of your pocket. How about we bring back integrity, bring back stoicism, bring back self-shame, bring back standards? Because at the end of the day, if it's not to protect you, it's to protect your children and grandchildren, and they deserve it because they're worth it. They're going to 100% until they prove otherwise. And don't blame the sins of the father, blame the actions of the son. So, Bucko, do you want to say goodbye to everyone? Subscribe to both our channels In the Trenches with Kaz.
Yeah. We've had our say, Kaz. You can't let the standards drop, guys. Not only in the military, across the board, in any job, mining, fireys, police, corrections. You can't lower the standard. You've got to keep it there. There was a standard for a reason.
There's one caveat. Can we get Victoria Secret models to lower their standards to include Kaz? Swipe right.
I don't know if they'll lower their standards that low, Kaz. I don't know if they'll do it. Hey, speaking of which, you going all right on the women front, mate? We haven't seen you with a... About time you hooked up with a nice young lady, I think.
I haven't kissed a woman in anger in 6 years, mate, because I'm all looking after my daughter. But it's time for Kaz to get out there and fly away, just fly away.
Time for Kaz to get out and meet a nice young lady, I think, mate. It'll be the best thing that can happen to you.
We'll see you later. Have a good day. And to that politician, you need to hand your resignation in because
you're fired.
He's a disgrace, mate. And I'll tell you what, the way the whole Labor Party's going, I'm not liking the look of it when it comes to the Australian Defence Force. It is looking grim.
That's right. No
Thanks,
politics.
mate. Thanks for your time.
Just love and respect.
Anytime, Kaz.
We should do it more often, mate. We'll invite people. So we've got 4 people on the screen, eh?